Is that the voluntary declaration that was referred to as against it being mandated? There's a voluntary process that you expect importers and so on to speak to the ministry when they're trying to get their license? Or is it that someone comes in and say, for instance, I want so and so, and they must bring and satisfy and convince the issuer of that import license that everything is coke and curry?
Right. There is as you probably know, there is a thing in Trinidad now called the single electronic window, the SEW.
Mm-hmm.
And you can go online and fill out all the information on the single electronic window. Now, there are some things missing in that which we are trying to fix, but that document then goes to the Ministry of Agriculture, who uses it to determine whether the products that are described on that particular application meets the requirements of the Ministry of Agriculture.
Desmond Ali is my guest this morning. He is the former CEO of CARIRI. He is the former president of the Caribbean Poultry Association. He is too a food safety inspector. We're talking about what we're preparing, what we're getting ready to digest today, and talking about frozen chicken, a result of the JSE revelations, the revelations at the JSE, that we've importing and selling as fresh food products that have been frozen chicken parts for over 5 years. That's what we're talking about. The small shopkeeper, small shopkeepers, they do not import, so this would be happening at a major import level, I would assume. And if that is the case, is the mechanism in place, or do you know of any importer who has been charged with selling expired food? I'm just trying to look for precedent here. No. Have we had in Trinidad and Tobago any exporter where it has been proven that they were in fact selling expired food as fresh? And
in fact, charged? I can think of no case in Trinidad where a person either manufacturing or distributing or retailing food has been charged for breaking the law. On any of those
so nobody would have lost their license or in any way penalized for selling any of those things. You cannot off the top of their head.
Not that I know of.
Legislation that it obtains right now that is presently there, is it something that makes it prohibitive for someone to want to cheat, or there is no penalty is what I'm asking if one is found to be doing that? No one has been charged. I understand that thus far, shockingly, but no one has been charged thus far. But if someone was found, is there legislation to punish such a violator?
I think that if you examine the Food and Drugs Act, yes, there probably is a clause in there to allow that to happen. But we must bear in mind that food fraud has become huge business.
Yes,
all over the world. In Europe, it's estimated that food fraud is costing the industry about 10% of gross revenue. What is costing the consumer? Nobody's really enumerated that as yet. And the reason for that is there are several reasons for that. One is that the chaps who are doing it know that the chances for being caught are extremely small. Secondly, they know that if they are caught, the fines are extremely small.
Yes.
They probably just get a rap over the knuckles.
And that's the reason I asked you the question, yes. Because if I can pay it off and continue doing this, then I'll do it again.
Exactly.
And again and again.
But let me give you an issue of a case that happened recently.
Yes.
A meat exporter out of Swansea in the UK was exporting halal lamb to the Middle East. And he's been doing it for a number of years. Somebody in the Middle East had the facility in a laboratory to test the lamb. And he ran what is called DNA analysis and found that the lamb wasn't lamb at all, but it was pork. When they complained to the British authorities, they found that this gentleman who had been selling this halal lamb to the Middle East had only been buying pork and was coloring it for a number of years and selling it into the Middle East as halal lamb. Luckily, he was fined and he was sentenced to jail for 5 years in prison just a few weeks ago. That's one of the cases I can cite where the law, in fact, did catch up with the person who was committing the misdemeanor.
Yes, 5 years in prison. I hear that. Good thing. We get across to the area of Trinidad and Tobago where no one has been charged, no one has been prosecuted, no one, to your knowledge, has lost their license or so on. So we're talking in terms of the Trinidad and Tobago Bureau of Standards. They've got to be working at some way to get a standard, to get standards in place here. What is your best understanding of what is being recommended to them to bring this Russian roulette this chicken Russian roulette that we're playing to a stop, because you mentioned a moment ago that no one has quantified the amount of money, but when you check what could happen as a result of bringing in meat that has expired, what is going to cost the nation from a health standpoint in the long run is prohibitive to even think about. So if you were looking at the Trinidad and Tobago Bureau of Standards trying to put together standards that will in fact cover the industry, what are you hoping to see there?
Can't happen. Let me tell you, it won't happen. Under the present situation, and the present situation is unique to Trinidad and Tobago. We are unique in the Caribbean, we're probably unique in the world, in that the Bureau of Standards under the Bureau of Standards Act is specifically excluded from dealing with food products.
Specifically excluded?
Specifically
Why?
excluded.
Why, do you know?
Because it was argued when the Bureau of Standards Act was being drawn up that food was being adequately covered under the Ministry of Health through the Chemistry, Food and Drugs Ordinance. So that food standards are in the Food and Drugs Ordinance of 1960. So that the Bureau of Standards does not deal with food products.
But then we're looking at something like the Bureau of Standards to, in fact, get legislation enacted that will give them the power to set new standards for imports. Are we not?
That matter has been on the table for the longest time. The Bureau of Standards falls under the Ministry of Trade. The Chemistry, Food and Drugs Division falls under the Ministry of Health. And therein lies the problem.
Now let us see how we do this now. So the import is coming from Ministry of Agriculture.
They approve the import license.
They approve the import license. And then we have the Ministry of Health with ensuring what is on the table is in fact workable. And the third ministry you just mentioned?
The Ministry of Trade.
Ministry of Trade. So again, you need to get some kind of mechanism set up in place where we can bring them together, that there is checks and balance and there is consultation and there is sharing of information between three of them. You said that is never going to happen. I just repeated what you said to say it can be done. There must just need to be the will to do it.
That's correct. We have proposed, when we met with the JSC, that we develop a memorandum of understanding between the three ministries, which will allow us to, which will allow persons from different ministries to carry out responsibilities of other ministries, so long as that memorandum of understanding occurs and is in place. Up to now, it's not happened.
How long has that been?
We proposed that sometime last year, actually.
Do you believe the new revelations coming before the Joint Select Committee, Mr. Desmond Ali, my guest, do you believe, in fact, this will put a fire, as it were, below the legs of some people to get something done? Are you optimistic about something being done as a result of what we just learned?
I am, in fact, very happy and very optimistic about what happened at the JSC. Yes, I think it's suddenly raised an important issue for the public, and the public has suddenly become aware of what those issues are. Food fraud covers not only chicken; it covers the whole range of food products, and we need to be. I mean, if you look at canned and bottled juices, you recognize the problem. A lot of people are selling products as juices, and a juice is supposed to be the pure product of a fruit.
Right.
They're selling juices, but they're actually drinks. So it's really a free for all out there. And
would you like to have some coconut water? I know exactly that of which you speak.
On a Sunday morning, I might.
Yeah, but you may not get the pure thing, It may be. Anyway, I understand what you're saying there. You are optimistic that this now in the public domain, some action will be brought in. Speak to me of if you had to recommend two primary areas in fixing this. In conclusion, if you had to give me 2 or 3 primary areas you would like to see taken into consideration to correct this problem. And of course, we both are optimistic and hope that the Chemical, Food and Drug Division of the ministry will in fact get back in operation soon. Are you optimistic about that, by the way? I mean, it's 2.5 years. And the amazing thing about that, why I sound so jaded, is because initially I heard 1 year. Then I heard the minister say 2 years. And then I get you in and you go 2.5 years.
That's correct.
Exactly how long this has been down is amazing. But are you optimistic about that coming on stream?
I think as a result of what has happened at the JSC and as a result of public pressure, I think something will be done now, yes.
All right. Desmond Ali, give me your 3 top recommendations then in us moving forward in dealing with this food fraud, as it were, which I think is a criminal act.
Yeah, it is a criminal act, of course. Definitely. Food fraud is a criminal act. It's an act to deceive the public into the public believing that the product they're getting is not what they're expecting. And that's deception. What are the 3 things I would recommend? The first thing is this. I think we've got to bring the Chemistry, Food and Drugs Ordinance up to date. It's a 1960s ordinance, and the world of food has changed. And because of the WTO in 1994, the global situation in food trade has changed dramatically, and it's become a very dynamic situation. So first of all, we've got to bring the Chemistry, Food and Drugs Act up to speed. Secondly, I think we've got to modify the Bureau of Standards Act and bring food products under the Bureau of Standards Act, because I think the Bureau of Standards should take the responsibility for developing food standards and take it out of the Food and Drugs Act. And the reason I'm saying that is this. If a standard is in the Food and Drugs Act and you want to change it, you have to go to Parliament and you have to get it sent to the legal draftsman. If it's in the Bureau of Standards, it's an entirely different situation. And what you can do is you can cross-reference the standard in the Bureau of Standards through the Chemistry, Food and Drugs Act. Then we have to bring our labs up to date. DNA analysis has become an important tool in this business.
The tool all over the world.
It is the important tool, and we've got to make sure we have that. And finally, we've got to make sure we have persons who are adequately trained to do what they are supposed to be doing.
At the end of the day, that's what it comes down to, whether it is in national security, which is an area I will raise later on when Commander Garvin here joins us, because it is one thing to get the technology, but if you don't have people with the requisite training, then in fact you're having machinery technology that is sitting there unused. Do we have information sharing ability to the best of your knowledge as far as food safety with the rest of the region and or counterparts across the world?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. We belong to an organization called the Codex Alimentarius. Trinidad is a signatory to that. And the Codex Alimentarius, in fact, is an FAO WHO organization that deals specifically with issues related to food and food safety.
Fabulous. I can only thank you so much for taking the time for coming out this Sunday morning and bringing such clarity to us. Desmond Ali, we will take this interview like all our interviews. We will put it up on TTRN stream, TTRN YouTube channel, where folks can go up and listen again to the information that you provided with us this morning. But it was a joy having you here this morning. I truly appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Rennie. It's been a joy being here as well.
Thank you so much. You have yourself a wonderful day, sir.
Thank you.
You're inside Brunch on 107.7. Coming up next, we head across the pond. Jolly old England may not be so jolly this morning, at least in many parts of it. We will talk about that with a correspondent up there after this.